My guest this week has cheated death by her count 10 times already. One of Canada's favorite TV personalities proves she's as full of life as ever on this episode of Brio TV, the podcast. Well, Dini Petty's a Canadian broadcast icon known for her groundbreaking achievements in both aviation and broadcasting. She gained fame as the first woman in the world to pilot a helicopter while reporting traffic for a radio station. Later, she transitioned to television, co-anchoring news and hosting popular talk shows like Cityline and The Dini Petty Show. Now, at 80, she's back on her network television hosting Trailblazing Talks, a one-hour special celebrating personal milestones. She's got some pretty exciting guests as well. And without any further ado, here she is, Dini Petty. Dini, welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Good to be here.
Well, it's lovely to speak with you. And I'm curious to see, I've seen a trailer for your special. Your guests are Canadian Senator and Olympian Marnie McBean and award-winning producer-actor Tanya Williams. Have you interviewed them both before?
I have fabulous women who've done so much. I smile when I hear Marnie's name because I work out at the gym that I work out. The first thing I do is 20 minutes on the rowing machine, which I now call the McBean.
Good for you. Wow. That's great. That's good exercise. And Tanya, you've known as well for many years?
Absolutely. What an extraordinary career that woman has had. She's done so much. Not only, being on The Young and Restless for, 20-something years, but starting her film festival. It's extraordinary what these two women have done. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, she goes all the way back to Polka Dot Door, I think, on TVO.
That's right. I've forgotten that. When I talk to young women, I often say, never forget how far we've come.
Yeah.
Never forget how far we have to go.
Well, those are two ladies for sure who have lived up to that. Now, you've already shot the special, have you?
Yes, we have. We've done the special. It was, I was standing behind the set and I'm walking in a circle and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I realized what I was doing. One, it was 29 years since I'd been back in a studio doing a show. And the second is I did a one-woman show and I did about 44 performances across Canada. And I would always walk in a circle behind the set and I talked to Red Skelton, who my favorite interview, and we became very good friends.
Wow.
And I would always have a chat with him and I'm behind the set and I'm talking to Red and I got the same advice from Red that I got on every show I ever did. Go out and have fun, because if you're having a good time, they're going to have a good time.
Well, that seems to be something you lived up to. Just on Red Skelton, I believe there's a Red Skelton Museum in the States just across the border from Windsor, I think. And they, at that museum, you can watch that Dini Petty episode of you interviewing Red Skelton.
You don't have to go to the museum. You can go to YouTube, put in Dini Petty YouTube, and I put up Omar Sharif, the most charming man I've ever interviewed. And there's about 8 or 10 others, and I'm going to put up more as we go along.
Well, that's great. I watched the Red Skelton one. He's very relaxed. He's funny, of course, but you got him in a sensitive time there. It was fun to watch. And, Canadian networks, aside from CBC, aren't famous for archiving episodes of their shows over the years. Are there many episodes of the Dini Petty Show that exist after that 10-year run?
I own all of them.
Oh, why am I surprised, Dini? Of course you do. Good for you.
Yeah, a discussion when I left, I ended up owning them. I cannot discuss the details of the discussion, but I can say that I'm a happy girl. So yeah, I'm going to be posting a lot of them.
That's great. It's good because, it's stunning, really. The first 10 years of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson are gone.
No.
The tape was seen to be more valuable than the episode. And
I know all the tapes from City, I believe, are gone, which is a shame because it holds my favorite moment of television ever. And if I had it, I'd put it up on YouTube and it would have billions of views and it would make anyone who watched it smile and make their day.
Okay. Well, I'm hanging. Who are you talking to then?
Dr. Saul Levine was head of psychiatry at Sunnybrook Hospital. In my early days at City, I had a medical doctor Monday, a lawyer Tuesday, and I had Saul on Wednesday. And it's live TV, and people would call in and ask questions, and Saul would brilliantly answer them. And every once in a while, as he did on this occasion, he tended to do a dissertation. And somehow he ended up talking about the Peloponnesians. And then he turned to me and he said, "What did that woman bring up?" I said, "I think it was her lunch." Saul started to laugh. And we figured out years later that it triggered me. We lost it. The two of us are now off our chairs, on our hands and knees, elbows on a glass coffee table, completely out of control. There's 2.5 minutes of live TV to commercial. Saul finally gets it together. I look over. He picks his head up, looks directly in the camera, and says, in all seriousness, "I don't do this in my office." Well, that was it. I was gone. About a minute later, we look up, and there's the president of the Citytv, Moses, standing beside one of the cameramen, and he's furious. He can't talk. It's live TV. So he's shaking his fist at us, and he's mouthing, "Stop it, stop it." That's it. We laughed. We completely lost it until commercial break. So there's a 2.5 minute show of two people completely losing it. It was my favorite moment ever. Saul and I are still friends to this day, and we still laugh about it. It was absolutely my favorite moment of television.
Well, I hope you get one like that on Trailblazing Talks. I think that is a shame we can't watch that. Bit shocked that Moses didn't recognize that as something that you'd want in a time capsule, not that he was not something to be upset about. Why was he freaking out over that?
Who knows why Moses does what he does? Figure it out, call me immediately, Bill.
Okay. Moving on. Is this something, Dini, that might be a pilot for a series? Is that your intent with Trailblazing Talks?
You and I have been in this business how long, Bill? Together? My God.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. You do what you do, and you throw the dice, and you see what comes out. So who knows?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly the talk show genre is in flux. Even if you look stateside, it's the U.S. networks can't afford, they claim, to make nightly talk shows anymore. So I guess that whole era of the talk show is up for grabs a bit right now. Do you see it that way?
I don't know which way I see it, Bill. I mean, you're right. Everything has changed so much. Mm-hmm. The people we work with, news forums, supply to television stations across the country content. So Bill, I'm going to look into my crystal ball now, and I'm going to tell you what the future holds. Wait a minute. My God, it's cloudy. Come back tomorrow for a reading from Madam Dini. Yes.
Well, Madam Dini probably has a better take on it. You're right, though. Anybody who tells you they know what TV will be like in 6 months, don't pay attention, right?
Anybody who tells you they know what anything is going to be like in 6 months, don't pay attention.
Well, tell me this then. What's the difference in interviewing celebrities in your 80s as opposed to in your 40s?
Zero.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, interviewing is a skill of its own. It's interesting. I sometimes in the morning go sit on my balcony and I'll take my little iPhone and play computer games. I decided to give that up and read good books instead. And I opened Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. And there's a beautiful inscription. What a delight to be interviewed by somebody who's intelligent, charming, and delightful. Thank you, Frank McCourt. My skill in interviewing is the same skill I've always had. I'm a very curious person, which is my gift and my curse. So when I interview people, I'm fascinated by them. So I still am.
Well, I think that's essential, Dini. You're right, and you are. But why would you see it as a curse?
Oh, please. I don't know if you had a chance to read the chapter I sent you. I'm on my second set of 9 lives. I've had 10 calls.
I did read it. I wanted to ask you about that. I was flabbergasted. So please continue. Yeah, 10 lives that you 10 times you faced death. Please tell. Yeah.
Actually, 11. I had 10 close calls, and then there was the certain death experience. And yeah.
Well, I hope you're not referring to this podcast episode.
Not yet. But
now, when I read that, I thought, well, okay, I can see some of this. You were a helicopter pilot, of course, famously the first for many, many years, 5,000 hours in the air in a helicopter. That is a long time to be having your fingers crossed. And so, I read there's a big 3 or 4 where your engine cuts out and you're plummeting in the air, and just by the grace of God that the engine starts up again. But talk a bit about some of those death moments that you faced.
There's one of all the incidents, there's one that happened in a helicopter, which to this day I cannot explain. And I remember because it was my birthday, January the 15th, I was at my boyfriend's house that night, and it was a Friday night partying. And I got a call Saturday morning from the station. Would I go in a search and rescue on Lake Simcoe? I said, guys, I partied till like 2 a.m. I was drinking. I can't. 2-3 hours later, the phone rings. It's a good friend of mine, Charlie. And Charlie said, Dini, I'm the one who called the station. My uncle went out on Lake Simcoe last night in the Skidoo. He hasn't come back. I'm like, oh, my God, Charlie. So Steve and I jump up and we drive to Buttonville Airport, and my instructions are to follow Yonge Street, the longest street in the world, which ends at Lake Simcoe. I get there and I see the police cars. So I land and I go, what do you want me to do? They said, fly over the lake and see if you can see a guy either slumped over Skidoo or lying by it. And he's got on a dark green suit with a yellow vest. I'm like, how hard can this be? So I picked the machine up to about 600 feet and I'm heading out over Lake Simcoe to learn 2 facts. Lake Simcoe is a lot bigger than I thought it was. There's all kinds of people out there. There's people on skidoos, people on skis, people ice fishing, people with their kids, people with dogs. I'm like, oh, this is... Anyway, about 3 or 4 minutes later, I see some big snowflakes go by. And I kind of see a guy that I think, oh, no, he gets up and it's not him. And I look forward and I fly into a blizzard, a complete whiteout. I fly only VFR, visual flight. I have no instruments to fly by. I have to see where I'm going. I freeze and I fly into this snowstorm, and it's literally like being in a snow globe that someone's just shaken. I'd heard the word vertigo, but it never made sense to me. I mean, if you're sitting down, don't you know where the bottom is? My mind is now screaming at me as I sit there frozen. Do something, Dini. I don't do, and now it's screaming. Do anything. Do something. I take the cigarette out of my mouth and I hand it to Stephen. I say, here, hold this. And I look out of his side of the machine, and that's when I see it. It looks like a telephone pole painted black. It's my only line of reference in the snow globe. I use it to straighten the machine out, and I lower her down to the ice to discover I'm about 15 feet off the deck. I've been slip sliding all the way down, and one more of those, and those blades would have hit that ice at 3,000 RPM. I'm now sitting in the middle of Lake Simcoe, so I'm safe. I'm on the ice, but it's a blizzard, which passes in about, 3 or 4 minutes, enough for me to have another cigarette or two, which is probably why I've always had this problem with cigarettes. And I can see, I lift her up. I can't see land anywhere. The question is now, what direction did I come from? I do have a compass. I go south. It takes me about 4 minutes or so to reach the shoreline. I start following a street southbound, and then I check my instruments to realize that I'm almost out of gas. In my hurry to go on a rescue mission, I did everything wrong. I didn't check the records, the weather. I didn't check my gas. I just went to help a friend. Every day when I left Buttonville Airport and I drove south, about a kilometer south, there was a place that sold carpet remnants called Factory Carpet. It had a big pink neon sign, but the C was burnt out. So it would flash, Factory Carpet, Factory Carpet. So, all right, you got 3 minutes in the air here, because falling out of the air at 800 feet without gas is stupid. A minute and a half goes by and I look up. What do I see? Factory Carpet. I'm right beside Buttonville Tower. This is RGQ. Cleared for landing, please. They said, come on home. You're the only one up there. I put the machine down, and I swear to God, the machine coughed. She was running out of gas.
Wow.
Years later, after telling that story several times, someone said to me, wait a minute, you're in the middle of Lake Simcoe. Yeah. When you lifted the machine up, you couldn't see land. Yeah. So how did you see a telephone pole?
Right.
Then someone suggested maybe you imagined it, which makes me a genius. To this day, Bill, I do not know what that line was, but whatever it was, it saved us.
That's amazing. I mean, how could you imagine something at a right angle that would be perfect for you to level your craft too? That it is very unexplained, Dini.
Welcome to the world of the unexplained.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with Dini Petty. For over a decade, Super Channel Heart and Home is where you find such family favorites as One Calls the Heart. Well, there's now a new drama in town with a similar feel, Crossroads Springs. The story centers on the Hamilton family who run Red Oak Ranch, including adult siblings James, a pastor, and Janet, an ER doctor. When their elderly father Willis is thrown from a horse, the siblings have to leave their careers and life elsewhere to help with the ranch. To make matters worse, there's rivalry and tension with the neighboring farm. Things get so bad, James starts a Come As You Are church right on the farm. You might say he's outstanding in his field. The series was filmed in the Newmarket, Ontario area north of Toronto and stars Jonathan Stoddard and Canadian Emily Alatalo. If family drama is what you're after, say giddy up to Crossroads Springs. Find it now exclusively in Canada among all the offerings this month on Super Channel. And we're back with Dini. You were flying for CKEY, I believe, at the time, and it was a pink helicopter, a pink Hughes 300. Where's that chopper now? Is it in a museum? Does it still exist?
I don't know. I tracked her down. I always promised her I'd find her and put her in my backyard and plant flowers around her. But I tracked her out to the East Coast to a farmer.
Wow.
But he sold it to the States and they changed the registration, so I've never been able to find her.
Wow.
When I talked to the farmer, he said, and I told him the background, he said, and he laughed, he said, I knew it. He said, some of the paint came off, the blue, and I said to my son, that's pink paint under there. I'm going to go tell my son I was right. So I don't know what she is, but she never let me down.
You even had like a pink jumpsuit, didn't you?
I had a pink car, a pink jumpsuit.
Oh my God.
Helicopter. Yeah, it was, a billboard, but it was the best thing that ever happened in my life, Bill.
When did that how did it happen? How did you become a helicopter pilot? How old were you at the time?
My mother was Canada's first talent agent, Molly Petty Producer Services.
Wow.
And I worked in the office with her. And one day I picked up an 8x10 of a guy in free fall. And I picked up the phone and said, producer services. It's the guy in the photo, Daryl Henry. And I said, what are you doing? He said, we're skydivers. He was Canada's champion skydiver. And he was gorgeous. And he was a brilliant writer. And he said, you want to come up to the drop zone? I'm like, yes, Daryl, I'd love to. So I took up skydiving, and I was never any good at it. But I never relaxed. But Daryl kept saying, the first great love of my life, you'll relax, Dini. You'll relax. I finally quit. And I was working for a friend of my mother's, Dean Peterson, who had one of the first production houses in Canada. And he closed the doors, and I needed a job. And my dear friend Peggy said, Dini, I'm taking you for lunch, and I'm going to pay, and we're going to figure out what you're going to do. I said, I'm in, Peggy. I'm 23. We go to Castle George for lunch, and 3 guys from CKEY radio come in, and their problem comes up. There's a helicopter war going on in Toronto. At that time, traffic reports were done all from helicopters, and each one was a guy who flew and a guy who reported, except at CKEY where Bob Carter did both. So 2 weeks before this luncheon, they have a meeting because all the stations are buying second helicopters. And Harvey Clark, God bless you, Harvey, walks in and says, I know how we're going to win the war, boys. We're going to find a girl. We're going to put her up in a pink helicopter. She's going to wear pink, and she's going to fly it, and she's going to report. Go and find her. Meanwhile, back at the lunch, the guys are like, where are we going to find a girl to do this? Tommy looks over and he says, see that girl? That's Dini Petty. Now, I know she's crazy enough to jump out of an airplane. She's crazy enough to fly a helicopter. Honestly, Bill, as he's walking to my table, Peggy had just said, so what are you going to do, Dean? I said, I don't know, Peggy. I can't be a secretary long before computers. I can't spell. But I want to be challenged. I want to use my brains. And there was a tap on my shoulder. And I looked up and I heard the words that changed my life. How'd you like to be the girl in the pink helicopter? Yeah.
Wow.
And because I'd spent so much time in a small airplane jumping out of it, I was comfortable being in a tiny little helicopter, and that helped a lot.
That's an incredible story. You were 23.
I was 23, and I walked into the heliport, and they were all men. And I said, hi, I'm Dini Petty, and I'm going to fly and report. And they said, go ahead, sweetheart, give it your best shot. And they had a pool of how long I'd last.
Well, you showed them. How long did it take to master piloting a helicopter?
It took me a year to get both my private and my commercial pilot's license. And I had a guy who flew me around for that year. And the first time, I was married at the time. I'm flying 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, trying to figure out what the streets are called, trying to figure out how to do traffic reports, going for a flying lesson every afternoon. I mean, I'm a busy girl. Turns out I'm a natural helicopter pilot. I was really good.
Must have been. Yeah. Wow. Well, and now, Dini, most of the people looking at traffic are in fixed wing airplanes, I believe, right?
I think I don't know. I think most of it is done from the ground with traffic cameras. But when I first wrote my pilot's exam, I passed the flying part, but I failed the written part. So I'm up with my pilot.
Because you couldn't spell?
No, just because I was so busy, I hadn't gone to night school, hadn't studied enough. So I'm up with my pilot one day, and we're talking, and I said, how do you feel about the fact I'm going to put you out of a job? You just failed the exam. We all know you're not going to do it, which is all I needed to hear.
Yeah, perfect.
So I went to night school. A month later, we sat the exam, and the laughing boy was out of a job.
I once interviewed Daryl Dahmer later in his career, and he flew a plane. Buttonville was still open at the time, and I thought, oh, this would be a great assignment, but he wouldn't take me up. He said I was too heavy, and he had all his stuff on the passenger seat anyway. And
photography, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a good interview, but I have been in a helicopter a few times, but I can't imagine 5,000 hours. That's incredible.
For 5,000 hours, it's 6 traffic reports an hour. That means 30,000 times I either said, the Parkway northbound is stop and go from the Bloor Viaduct up through, or wait, The Gardner westbound is stop and go. At 4,000 hours, I thought, if I don't get out of this job, I'm going to go crazy.
Can you imagine, Dini, reporting on Toronto traffic today? You would just be, every single report would be, it's a nightmare. Please stay home.
It's still the same thing. The Parkway northbound is stop and go, and the Gardner westbound, nothing's changed. It's just a lot worse. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. You went from being in the air to being on the air. You made this transition from being a pilot. You were a decade at Citytv, I believe, and another decade later at CTV. How did that television opportunity present itself for you?
I called Moses and said, "You ought to hire me." And I was a little bit famous by then because...
Yes, sure were. Yeah.
And so he hired me. And I have to tell you, Bill, my first interview was an unmitigated, hideous, unbelievable disaster on live TV. I interviewed Patrick McNee, the great English actor.
Oh, my goodness, yes. The Avengers.
Yes. And I go in the studio and I've read the research, I don't know, a million times. I got all the questions in my head. I ask him my first question and I freeze. Startled deer in headlights, totally frozen, live TV. Patrick McNee, being a wise and kind man, leaned over and tapped me on the knee and said, "I know, you want to know about the play I'm in." "Yeah, tell me about the play you're in." It's just that he taps my knee again. "You want to know about my family?" "Yeah, tell me about your family." The whole freaking interview. Yeah, tell me about that. Yeah.
Well, I actually interviewed Patrick McNee many, many years ago, too, maybe around the same time. He didn't tap me on the knee. He was a bit of a rascal, Patrick McNee. He probably was delighted to be talking to you, right?
I don't know, Bill. I was frozen like a startled. I'm like, wow.
Well, you soon got past that. You must have settled in pretty quickly, thanks to Patrick McNee. And you wore a lot of hats at City. I know you did the news with Gord Martineau for many years, which was kind of a first, I think, in Canada to have a man and a woman. It was always the voice of God, the Lloyd Robertsons, and the people like that, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the date is that I started anchoring because I co-anchored with him and then I anchored the 5 o'clock news. But yeah, and that's where I had my certain death experience, was anchoring the 5 o'clock news. Jeez.
Okay, tell us about that one.
We did the 5 o'clock news from a different location every night in Toronto. So we had to get the sound and the video. And we go to the Hadassah Bazaar in the CNE. And it's the automotive building. There's like so many people and there's bargains and tables piled high with clothes. We got the signal. We got audio. We got video. We have the cable laid between tables. People are lining up to watch. It's about 3 minutes to air. And then a very handsome man stepped over the cable and walked towards me. Oh my God, he was gorgeous, about 6 foot tall, curly brown hair. I'll never forget him. Beautiful gray suit, and he got about 3 feet in front of me and said, "Are you Dini Petty?" And when I nodded the affirmative, he took the gun from his jacket and pointed it at my chest. Suddenly, I'm no longer in the automotive building. I'm standing on the edge of a rocky cliff.
Wow.
There's a void in front of me, a black void. I don't think about the kids. My life doesn't flash in front of me. The only thought in my mind is, am I going to float into this? Am I going to walk into this? Because this is about to happen. Obviously, I was in shock because it seems to me that I stood on the edge of that cliff for a long time. And if I close my eyes and go to that moment, as I do right now, I swear I could feel a slight breeze. And then I heard the man laugh and say, "Hey, it's not a real gun." And suddenly, I'm back in the automotive building and I'm screaming obscenities. My
I guess so.
Who had frozen because he got in trouble the week before for overreacting, chased the guy off through the crowd. The guy got away. I look at the cameraman. He said, "Well, you're not dead. Can you do this? We're up in 30 seconds. Give me a second. There's no business like show business." And I used this story at the end of my one-woman shows at the end of the second act. And I said that So I say to the cameraman, yeah, I can do it. And he said, you're up. 3, 2, 1. Good evening. City Pulse, news at 5. We're here at the Hadassah Bazaar. There's a lot going on here tonight. And on the entertainment scene, you've just heard Dini Petty's one-woman show, A Broad View. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I did. And I walk off the stage and the audience is like, what? Did she? What?
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
what a nightmare. I mean, I can't imagine that would have been terrifying.
Well, but I had to do the show, and people have asked me for years afterwards, why did the guy do it? To which I always reply, how the would I do?
Yeah, no, you don't want to know the motivation there. So you were at City for a while, and then switched over to Bayton, I guess at the time, CFTO, CTV, one of the three. What? How did you make that transition? Were you poached? Were you headhunted?
You know, in my speeches, I say to people, look, nothing's going to happen if you sit at home, except you're going to dream. Do something. Go out, do anything. I went to a McHappy Day, and Doug Bassett is there. And Doug Bassett said to me, you know, there's 2 women I've always wanted to work with. I got Sandy Ronaldo, I'd like to work with you. And I called him the next day and said, you know, that's a good idea, Doug. He said, what's a good idea? I said, we ought to work together. And so go out, go to McHappy Days, get a friend to buy you lunch, do something.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it was a time when you had guys like Doug Bassett running networks, you know, where things like that could happen. I don't know if that could happen today, right? It's more corporate.
Yeah, I hosted a thing about 4 years ago for the 99s. Amelia Earhart decided women needed a women's flying organization. She lived in New York, sent out hundreds of invitations. On the appointed day, 99 women showed up and the 99s were born. Only for fixed wing pilots, they now let in rotary wing pilots. And I was hosting an event for them. You'll appreciate this. It was an hour and a half. And I had the first woman jet fighter pilot, the first woman who pilot for Air Canada, the first woman water bomber pilot, the first woman. And at the end was a young woman, quite young, who worked out at the Cape Canaveral on the Canada space arm.
Wow.
And I said to this young woman, how did you get that job? And she said, well, I have curiosity about aviation and science. So I went and joined this club, and then I joined that club, and I joined another club. And in one of their newsletters, this little thing appeared about they wanted people to go and work there, to work in the Canada space arm. So I applied. So let's do something. Join a club. Join a couple of clubs. You never know where it's going to lead you. But if you sit home and dream, nothing will happen.
Yeah, no, it's true. Good advice. I know my family's had a cottage up the Bruce Peninsula for years in Wyerton. There's a little airstrip.
Yes.
Not so little. It's if you could land I think a commercial jet there, but it's not very busy. But there's a plaque out front to a woman who I think was maybe Canada's first pilot, and I'm ashamed I don't remember her name, but it's a significant honor for this one lady who set a milestone up there and a long time ago, you know. So it's good that folks are recognized for sure.
Yeah, it is. The thing I was going to say you'd appreciate, it was an hour and a half I had to do this. There were no commercial breaks like there wasn't. I had to talk an interview for an hour and a half, 5 people.
Wow.
In fact, at the end of it, I don't know how this came up. I said to them, I have to tell you something, and I'm curious if you've had the same experience. I have 5,000 hours flying time in that pink helicopter. I'm 80 years of age, and not once have I ever dreamed about flying that pink helicopter, ever. And when I said that to them, neither have any of them. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means, but isn't that fascinating?
Huh. Well, yeah, you did it when you were wide awake, I guess. And
but I've never dreamed about flying.
When was the last time you were in a helicopter?
2 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, good for you.
But here's the best part, Bill. I went for a tour with Heli Tours out of the Island Airport, which is owned by a woman who's a female helicopter pilot.
Nice.
And helicopters are flown by women.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So I went up with this beautiful young Brazilian woman who's 25. And, she's like me many years later, because if she'd been around when I applied, they would have hired her. She's just drop dead, beautiful, gorgeous child.
Well, I hope she understood who she was sitting next to.
Oh, please. She sure did. And she at one point took my hands and grasped them and said, "Thank you for being there."
Well, that's lovely to hear. Dini, you've always been very active in women's rights and causes. And we seem to be at a time, especially in the States, where a lot of those rights are being threatened, taken away. You must be shocked at how human rights have slid in that area over the last, let's see, how long has Trump been president? 6 years or whatever it is.
How far we've come. Never forget how far we have to go. We're arguing about abortion again. Please, get out of my body. I'm not ever surprised at the stupidity of human beings. And I'm not surprised at all. Do you know the name Margaret Sanger, Sanger?
Yeah.
She was the mother of birth control, and she is the woman. She was born in the late 1890 something, and was a nurse and saw how women were like, I got to stop having babies. Any help? Later in life, she founded Planned Parenthood, and later in life, she met a woman named McKittrick, who was heir to the Massey Ferguson fortune.
Wow.
And she put up the money, and they are the impetus, the money, and the drive behind the development of the first birth control pill. And Margaret Sanger said, when a woman has control over her reproductive life, a woman has control over her life. And I've worked in third world, and I resigned from one of the organizations that want you to sponsor a child. I said, there's no birth control. This woman, whether she likes it or not, is going to have a baby every year or every other year. And there ain't enough people in the world to sponsor these children. When you get birth control into your agenda, I will come back. Meanwhile, I'm going home to work in my own country.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's shocking. Dini Petty will return after these short messages. Have you been watching NCIS Tony and Ziva on Paramount Plus? Anthony Tony Donazo Jr. is a former NCIS special agent played by Michael Weatherly. Yes, he's a charming, sometimes comedic, often flirtatious guy. Ziva David, played by Cote de Pablo, first appears as a Mossad liaison to NCIS and becomes one of the core characters despite her burdens from the past. Together, the Tiva storyline is one of the most beloved and slow-burning in NCIS history. Catch up with Tony and Ziva as they take their act to Europe, where, between all the banter and bickering, they continue to take on the world in this new series. And remember, there's a mountain of entertainment on Paramount Plus. Well, time once again to check in on Hollywood Suite with our pal, Emily Gagne. Emily, what's new?
Well, Bill, are you ready to face the music?
Yes, I am, Emily. What do you got?
Well, we've got September soundtracks, so iconic films with great soundtracks from throughout film history, you know, stuff like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The Judy Garland A Star Is Born, or if you're into more modern stuff, Sign of the Times from Prince. We even have Notorious, the film about the Notorious B.I.G.
Wow, that's pretty cool. What else you got?
We also have, and I'm very excited to share this, an Oasis documentary from 2005. If you have been following the Oasis news cycle, they're touring again. It's really hard to get tickets, so why not just watch their show from the comfort of your own couch?
Well, there you have it. Consider Hollywood Suite an oasis of great music all this month. Right, Emily?
Right, Bill.
And now, on with the show. One other thing, and I was just doing a bit of research before we spoke. 10 years ago, you wrote a story for the Toronto Star talking about yourself at 70, and it was interesting.
The Toronto Star.
Yeah, and but you were talking about menopause and how it was such a taboo subject even 10 years ago, and you were... it wasn't a taboo for you. In fact, I think you were working on a natural menopause product at the time. But now you turn on the TV, suddenly menopause is all the rage. There's a couple of sitcoms. There's a CBC one, Small Achievable Goals. There's a very funny one, Leanne, just started on Netflix, starring Leanne Morgan. So it seems that television's caught up to you again, Dini. Do you watch any of these shows? What do you if you do, what do you make of them?
I've seen a bit of both, and I'm delighted that it's finally come out of the closet. Holy cow. The product that I worked with is the reason I went into an alternative product was the Women's Health Initiative came out, and we all went off HRT because they reported that too many women were getting cancer from it, and too many women. Well, they've now completely reversed their findings, and a lot of women are on HRT. But a lot of women want to use natural. And if you want to use natural, and I do not work for this company, but the product that I sold is now made by Platinum Naturals, and it's called Menosense, girls. And if you want to go alternative, go to Dini Petty Menopause. It's still on YouTube because nothing ever leaves. I did. It's on a product called Menomelt, but it's the same product as Menosense. And if you're having trouble and you don't want to go HRT, go for it. We brought a lot of stuff out of the closet. One of the people I worked with that I think should be honored is a man named Randy Gulliver, who was my director at City and went with me to CTV. And there in the 80s, Randy asked me to front a series called Growing Up Gay. And I went to my family, and my father said, "You can't do that." So, of course, I was like, "Really?" I went to 519 Church Street, Young Gays and Lesbians. And when I walked out of the room, my first thought was, my God, what are we doing to our children? We did this documentary, which has won an award. And ever since then, up till 5 years ago, every time I'd appear to do something somewhere, a man would wait at the back of the room. And then he'd come up afterwards when everyone was gone, and he'd say, "Thank you for saving my life."
Wow.
He said, "I saw Growing Up Gay." Randy Gulliver needs to be honored. This is back in the 80s. I don't know how many times people have said that. So you got to get stuff out of the closet. And then the fight for human rights. Can you imagine the day when we're actually all equal? Good Lord. The advancement of the human race is based on human rights.
Yeah, it's shocking. And it's almost like, why are there 80-year-olds who are heads of nations? It should be 10-year-olds who don't have that built-in prejudice that way. Yeah, it's terrible. But good for you. Dini, I'm curious, before I let you go here, thank you. You've been very generous with your time. With this latest venture, this talk show special you've got coming on, and where will people see that? Dini, do you know where it's going to be airing?
I think it is going to be on a lot of television stations across Canada. They haven't given me that, but
okay. Well, I'll follow up and make sure when this is scheduled that we give.
I'll put it up on my. I have a fan page.
Nice, of course you do.
So if you go to Dini Petty Facebook, or I guess we'll put it up on YouTube. And if you put in Dini Petty YouTube, you can see Red and Omar Sharif and Sarah, the Duchess of New York, who, by the way, is a helicopter pilot.
Wow. That's fantastic. What are other memories of Red Skelton? What was he like?
Red and I became very good friends, very good friends. I'll tell you my wonderful story. The last time I saw him, we went to dinner. And when we sat down at the table, there were three of us, his manager, who'd been his longtime manager in Canada. And when we sat down at the table, Red's like, "Where's the baby? Where's the baby?" The guy screams, "It's on the floor. It's on the floor." So I sit down and Red leans over and he picks up a woman's evening bag that's got silver sequins on about the size of a dime, folded in half with a big rubber band around it. I went, "That's the baby?" He takes the rubber band off and he said, "I have a lot of stuff, but I travel so much, so sometimes I take some of it with me." He puts his hand in the bag and he brings out a Rolex watch. The face is covered with diamonds and there's huge rubies around it. He flips it over and it says, "To Red, love, Howard Hughes." I'm like,
"Oh my God. Wow."
Wow. He goes, "No, wait, there's more." He puts his hand in. He says, "That cheapskate Bob Hope didn't give me anything till my 75th birthday." He brings out a pair of star sapphire cufflinks. The star sapphires are huge, surrounded by diamonds. I'm like, "Oh," he goes, "Wait, there's more." And he puts his hand in and he brings out a tiny wooden cross from the Pope to Red. And in the center of that wooden cross is a piece, is glass. And under the glass is a sliver of wood from the cross.
Oh my goodness.
Puts it all back in the bag, folds it in half, puts a rubber band around it, drops it on the floor, and we have dinner.
Wow. Good night and God bless. And that was that.
We're leaving the restaurant between two sets of big doors, and the manager stayed behind to pay the bill. And Red turns to me and says, "I wish you'd been my daughter.
Oh my goodness.
I wish you'd been my father." I have a handwritten letter from Red. It's 2 pages long. I read it at Christmas. It always makes me cry.
How sweet.
Yeah, we became very close friends.
Do you have one of his clown paintings?
I did. He sent me one on my birthday.
Pretty nice. That's very cool. Yeah, no, this Red Skelton Museum is still going. And he was once when CBS, he did this show right in Television City there in Hollywood. And he used to drive his car right into the Television City, right inside the building. He was the only star, I think, maybe him and Jack Benny, who had that privilege. But pretty important guy. A lot of us watched his show with our families every week. Pretty cool. So, with this new venture you have, who have you not interviewed that you would love to interview now?
It's such a good question, but Bette Midler.
Really? Wow.
Unfortunately, we lost Tina Turner. I never got to interview her because I wanted to ask her. Every woman who's been in an abusive relationship that leaves, there's something that triggers the moment where they just get up and leave. And it's usually a small thing. And I don't know what it was. But I've interviewed other women, and it's and then finally they go, "That's it." There's some Inuit women. There's an Inuit lawyer up in the Northwest who I'd love to interview, the woman who's premier of the Northwest Territories. I'd also like to interview some trailblazing men. There's a lot of fascinating people I'd love to talk to.
Yeah.
God knows I still haven't shut up, and I'm 80.
Well, that's great that you have the drive and the, experience and everything else to do that. It would be wonderful. I think it'd be a great service, and I hope to be tuning into that show soon. You've also have a book that you're working on. Am I correct?
Yes. Men and Other Furry Creatures.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't know, no publisher. I got the best rejection letter. "Oh my God, Dini Petty's life story is amazing. She's so brave. I wish I was the person to challenge this." I told a dear friend of mine, Vince Critani, who lives out in Nova Scotia, who's also a writer. He said, "Dini, That's what they write when they reject you, just in case it becomes a bestseller so they can say they knew it was good. I'm like, oh, is that why they do that?
That's funny. Men and other furry creatures. Well, I'm trying to qualify.
Oh, you sure do.
And was there back on the Dini Petty show, which I was fortunate to guest on a couple of times when there would be new TV season. I would come in from TV Guide Canada and say, here's what's on this fall kind of thing. So thank you for that years ago.
If you remember the dates, I have the tape.
Oh, well, that's true.
I know all of them.
Okay, I'll look it up if I can. I would be very curious. I think I'd probably look about 12, but sure. let's check it out.
How old are you, Bill?
I am 68.
And what do you do for physical exercise?
Not enough. What should I be doing? I walk. We live here in Orangeville. Sandra and I, we moved here a year and a half ago. And one of the reasons we moved was to be somewhere where we could leave our house and go north, south, east, west and walk more. But other than that, I used to play hockey a lot. I don't do that anymore. So I'm open to suggestions.
Walking is one of the very best things you can do. I used to live up that way in the Mulmer Hills before.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Before I moved back to Toronto. Walking is one of the best things you can do. I go to the gym 3 times a week.
Good for you.
A 5-minute workout, but I've worked out my whole life, which is why I'm still in really good shape. My physical health is excellent. I take no medications.
That's great.
Mentally, I'm almost back.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no, it's smart. But yeah, I need to find a winter activity for sure. And
snowshoeing up there. I did my first one-woman show in Orangeville with David Nairn.
Oh my God, really? At the Opera House?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. You should come back. Yeah, they have quite an active theater scene up here. He is just retired, but it's still carrying on, and it's a nice little town. Well, how did you like living in Mulmer?
I absolutely loved it, but the kids left and the dog died.
Oh, okay.
And I was living alone in the middle of a forest, and my son is the one who said, you really need to be closer to a hospital because if anything happens and you're getting old. So I decided I didn't like living alone in the middle of a forest, particularly after my dog died. And I was like, I'm not comfortable anymore.
Well, that's something to consider, especially the headwaters here. The hospital isn't too bad, but it's something that factors in when you're looking to move for sure. Let me leave you with a quote here, and you've touched on this. I think it was that same Daryl Henry, who may have asked you, who are you, Dini Petty?
Oh, wow.
But you wrote about this. You said, no one had ever asked me that question before, and I've been trying to figure that out ever since. In my exuberance for life, I once swore an oath to myself to try everything once. So I jumped out of airplanes, flew helicopters, drove fabulous cars. The Porsche 928S and the E-Type V12 Jaguar were my favorites. We're going to talk about that before I let you go. Went scuba diving, worked on AIDS projects, which scarred my soul permanently, and traveled the world as much as I could. My 2 favorite places, Banff and Kenya, East Africa. Recently, I realized I actually don't want to try everything once. From this point forward, I want to repeat the best parts over and over again. Dini, do you still feel that way?
Absolutely. I don't want to try everything once because a lot of things you don't want to try. I'd like to go back to Kenya. They say when you travel, you come to a place where you feel at home. My mother lived in Kenya as a child.
Wow.
For several years. And when I went to Kenya, I felt like I'd come home. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my family never told me the truth till my late 40s. My mother lived there. My grandfather was a baker in Scotland, Glasgow. And he wanted to be a minister in the Church of Scotland. He became ordained. So they said, we'll find you a parish. So he quit his job. 3 days later, the Great Depression hit. The church is contracting. They're like, oh my God, we can't find you. And he goes back to the bakery and they're like, your job is gone. He's got 2 kids and no job, and answered an ad that had been in the paper for a few days. And they ended up moving to Nairobi, and he worked for the mayor of Nairobi.
Wow.
Baking factory. The truth is that they took in a Scotsman to defray expenses. He had an affair. She became pregnant. My grandfather, because men had all the power, took the two girls and went back to Scotland. He married almost immediately the ugly stepmother who tore up all the letters that came from Africa. So my mother lost her mother. So my grandmother is buried somewhere in, I don't know if she's in Kenya, and I don't know what happened. My father went to Kenya in the early 60s and did one of the first documentaries on the Maasai, went to the police. I learned all this when I'm 48, and the police said, you don't want to know how she died. And I'm like, of course I want to know. What happened to my grandmother? So I have great ties. I want to go back to Kenya. I do want to do more scuba diving. I want to go back to Tahiti, the most beautiful place I've ever been. I want to. I got a long list of I want.
Well, that's good for you. My God, I want the Porsches. Oh, my goodness.
Oh.
What, E-Type V12. That's that beautiful long,
Yep.
Should be in a art gallery, that car, right?
It is. It's in the Guggenheim.
It should be. I mean, it's stunning. You must have had fun. I think you nearly died in one, though. Is that part of your list?
Yeah. Helicopters are precision machineries, very precise. And so when I would get into a regular car, I'd go, what the heck? This is just a piece of garbage. So for me, I needed to drive something that was precision. There used to be a Jaguar shop on Bay Street. And in the window, they had this E-Type Jag, maroon with kid leather interior.
Ugh.
And the curtains and the carpeting matched the interior. I lusted for that thing with everything in my soul. Forgot about it. 2 months later, Hodge Leasing said, we want you to do some commercials in this. What do you want? I said, I want a E-Type V12 Jaguar maroon with kid leather interior. And it was in my driveway a month later. And it was beautiful.
Wow.
928S is the finest piece of machinery I've ever driven. Oh my God, it was beautiful and powerful. Oh, I love cars.
Yeah. Wow. Well, those are two amazing cars. I'm still trying to keep Saabs on the road, but
that's a nice car. And the universe owes me another Porsche before I leave.
Okay. All right. Looking forward to that. And just talking to you now, Dini, have you considered podcasts? I mean, it's such an intimate medium. It's much in your wheelhouse, I think. If you listen to conversations there's a lot of empathy, a lot of soul searching, there's some pretty good ones. What about that medium? Is that something you might consider doing?
You're not the first person that has suggested that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I got thrown out of every high school I went to for talking, Bill. No one mentioned this could be a career move. Obviously, my God, the woman never shuts up. Did you ever notice that? It's been suggested often that I do a podcast. We shall see what we shall see.
Yeah, no, I think it would be perfect. Do you listen to podcasts?
I do listen to, my son suggests a few here and there that I've listened to.
Yeah, there's some really good ones right now. Mark Maron, of course, is about to shut his down, but for 16 years, he's been doing that WTF. It's certainly one to check out if you're interested. And Smartless is fun. There's some
what else
conversations.
I've got WTF. What else do you recommend?
Smartless. That's got the three guys, Will Arnett and Will. They're three guys. They're busy. They're in Hollywood. They make films and television, and they bring guests on. The other two don't know who it's going to be that week, so it could be anybody. It's pretty fun. Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is really fantastic as well, and my goodness, what's her name? There's a couple of Saturday Night Live women who have really good podcasts, and not Tina Fey, but Amy Poehler has a really good one right now that is fun. Julia Louis-Dreyfus has one where she talks to older women I think it's called Wiser Than Me. She did an episode with Catherine O'Hara. That's one definitely to listen to as well.
You don't think the field's saturated after what you've told me?
Yeah, it's crazy saturated, but everybody has a podcast, but there isn't a Dini Petty podcast yet. And I think that's the difference. So,
it almost rhymes, doesn't it? The Dini Petty podcast.
Yes, it does. So I think you would excel at it. It would be a lot of fun. And that's the ones that people listen to are the ones that work. They don't all work. Not everybody has that gift. So think about it. I think it would be a great idea.
All right. Is one of the things I discovered recently in posting some of the interviews I have is, and the problem with being 80, I know more dead people than live people.
Yeah.
And I know more people. My God, I know 8 or 10 people who are transitioning from here to wherever. We lose so many along the way. A lot of the interviews I go to post, my son will say, Mom, she died. I'm like, oh, God, another one.
Well, yeah, that's true. I actually have spoken to people in their 90s on my podcast, writers from the Dick Van Dyke Show, and the guy who produced Laugh-In, George Schlatter, and Dick Cavett is 90 now, and they're the best stories. My God, because they've lived that life. They're fabulous guests, and so yeah, I know what you mean. I have friends. I'm 68. In the last 10 years, a lot of people I know have died, and it's my age, younger and older. So it happens to us all for sure. But
you think? You know what? I learned that fact recently, which I just find appalling. Every single human being, without exception, has to die. I'm like, wait a minute. There's always an exception. What happened here? But no.
Well, it does happen. We don't get out of this alive. My mom is 100. She's still with us, knock wood, and so that's a blessing. She's not sure who I am most of the time, but still it's a delight to visit her. And she was born in... Pardon me?
Was she ever sure of who you were? Was she ever sure of who you really were?
Well, that's a great question, Dini. It's probably a good thing she's not sure. But she was born in near Glasgow in Hamilton in Scotland. And so I'm half Scotch and half water.
Well, there's only one question in life, one big question. Is this a one-life deal, fade to black at the end, or is there more? And I know with total certainty, there is more. It
sounds like you've had some encounters that would suggest there absolutely is more, sometimes in snowstorms on Lake Simcoe and different places. So that's intriguing for sure. But that could be your podcast.
Is there more?
Yeah. Or just, what's your story about defying death? I think that'd be incredible. People would listen. So good luck. I hope it happens. But in the meantime, congratulations on everything you've got going now. And look for Trailblazing Talks, which is a great title. You've got the 1 hour special coming up, and we'll give the absolute place to watch that here. But Dini, thank you very much for your time today, and pleasure talking to you again.
To quote Frank McCourt, it's always wonderful to talk to an interviewer who's interesting and intelligent and charming, which is what you are. Thank you, Bill. And give me the dates for your that you were on the show, and I'll find you those tapes.
I'll absolutely look that up. That will be fun. I'd love to do that. I remember Dan Duran was your announcer, right? Back in the day. And
Dan Duran, the fabulous Dan Duran.
Yeah, it was a great show, and ran 10 years, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Dini, thank you again very much. Great to talk to you.
Thanks, Bill.
My thanks again to Dini Petty. It was wonderful to catch up with such an adventurous original. Look for her Trailblazing Talks. Thanks also to my PR pal, Sue Baldero, for setting up this interview. My thanks as always to Phil Hung for being the helicopter pilot of these airways. Kudos as always to BJ Del Conte, Paul Boudra, and Stephen Dudley for the music heard on these episodes. And finally, thanks to you, listener. If you liked what you heard, please spread the word. I'm Bill Brio. Thanks for listening.